Welcome back, guys. Today I'm working on building some stairs for the Star Wars office space. And one of the things I get asked a lot is, Jason, when you're fixturing on the table and you go to weld everything out, do you need to have some sequencing? Do you need to bounce around from corner to corner? Or can you just stay in one joint and weld all the way around and then move to the next one? Well, that is a good question. There's a couple things you can do. You can play it safe and skip around. What I like to do is just put maybe a tack in each corner to hold it and then just come back and weld the whole thing. Why? Because it's faster. And when you're doing a lot, like I have to here, just saving a little bit extra time is gonna save a long time in the long run. One more thing is I wanna show you how I like my joints. I like a good 1/16 of an inch gap and pretty nice heavy bevels all the way around the entire tube. I don't like trying to coat the tubes perfect. I can fill in a pretty good gap with this wire feed welder. Spending that extra time to fit these so tight and so perfect is kind of a waste of time. I'm gonna let the welding table adjust my parameters for me. Plus this is structural, so I do want really good penetration. I'm gonna be pouring a lot of weld in there, so there's the potential for it to warp, but I don't think it will because we got this thing fixtured really well. So I'm gonna try it right here. I'm gonna weld all the way around. We're gonna take it out of the fixture after it kind of cools for a few seconds. We're gonna flip it over on this side of the table and we'll check it for flatness. And so that you guys know that I'm not cheating or anything, I'm gonna let the camera roll all one take without any editing, so you know that I'm not trying to cheat in any way. So let's set the camera back up and off we go. The first weld I'm gonna do is the corner. Now I always go downhill on the corners, but I've left myself a lot of bevel. The second weld I'm going to do is the top, starting from the inside and working my way out. Now, this only takes a few seconds, and then I'm going to quickly roll over to the downhill fillet. Now, the downhill fillet is where problems really start to come up. The fatter the bead you put in here, the worse it's going to come out as far as weld distortion. Try to keep it as small as possible, or whatever the drawings require. Now from here, I just slide over my little plate. Now this is to keep the spatter from touching the table on my downhill. In case I get a big blob of some kind, it doesn't actually stick to the surface. And then I just repeat this process all over again, starting from the inside and working my way out. And as you can see, this goes pretty fast, not having to skip around all over the place. Now what I'm using is 75-25 argon shielding gas, and this is just short arcing on this 120 wall tubing. Yeah, this tubing isn't really all that thick, but it's not that thin either. But you still have to pay attention to what you're doing. You also have to notice that this frame is stood up on some blocks. These are my shim blocks. I got it spaced about 1/2 of an inch off the table surface. This allows me to slide that metal plate underneath and keep things from sticking to the table. It also allows me to weld all the way down to the bottom corner when I'm doing the downhill fillet on the inside corner and outside corner. This is also helpful when doing repeat setups, which means is there are a little bit of spatter and sparks and debris that gets on the table surface, and now in between stair treads I don't have to worry about cleaning this up, which means is those high spots always stay clean. So therefore the repeatability and the speed just goes that much faster by putting them on these blocks. Another thing you'll notice is that under every clamp there's also a block. Now if that block was not there, I could easily bend this tube by putting a few extra 100 pounds on it, and then when you release the pressure from the clamps, it'll spring back into place. So it's really helpful to have a block underneath your clamp to also gain some accuracy. That's something to remember. Even though you don't see the metal move, it does move. So that put me about 2 minutes and 30 seconds to weld out this frame. Now I'm just gonna buff the welds flat with this combi click system. I'll go over that in a little later video, why I like this grinding disc for this application over a flap disc. But this is gonna allow me to basically flip it over and check for flatness. Now if you notice, that bevel is very helpful in keeping the weld very small, which means there's not a lot to grind off. The weld surface is just barely proud of the metal on either side of it. So it only takes a few seconds to grind everything. That's also very helpful in speed, is reducing the time of your grinding. Okay, Preston, where'd you go? Okay, let's take a look, see how I did. Looks pretty good. The joints are all welded up nice. So everything's still pretty hot. I could leave it in here to let it cool for a little bit, but let's take it out, see what happens. because this is real world scenario, right? Pull it out hot, move on to the next one. We got money to make, right? Nobody's got time to sit here and let it cool off. Nice. We'll send it over here. That was a pretty good solid thud. What do you think? It is dead on nuts. Awesome. So from here, all I'm gonna do, clamp it up just like this. Just put a nice little brace in here on this side and this side. And then I can come back and weld on this side. Making square boxes should not be hard. And this table is the ultimate cheat code to build simple stuff like this. Fast, efficient, and easy.